Hello, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're having a great day whenever you decided to click on this here video. I'm gonna be talking about all the books that I read in the month of February. I don't know why I'm doing a country accent, but here we are. I read 24 books. Yes, I did. If you know anything about math, you know that means that I read almost a book a day. And if you know anything about me, you know my reading's sporadic, and that actually means that I read like 2 or 3 books every day for like a couple of weeks. I didn't read any books like the first couple of weeks of February. So it has been a chaotic month reading-wise, and that has meant that some of these books are absolute bangers and some of them are absolute dog shit. And I'm here to tell you what's what, such as who I am. I'm not talking about all 24 of these books though, because that would be absolute insanity. I will be talking about the 12 books that I haven't really talked about in other videos, or that I have talked about on my vlog channel and not here. So let's start out. Let's just get into it, because this is gonna be rant city. I'm so sorry. House of Earth and Blood, House of Sky and Breath, House of Flame and Shadow. Let's talk about the first two first. House of Earth and Blood. This is the 3rd time that I'm reading this book. House of Sky and Breath, 2nd time that I am reading this book. And I won't say that rereads were too kind to my opinion of the series. I think what I am learning and what I'm discovering about myself is that I really care about characters. That's actually something I already knew about myself. I'm not gonna lie to you. Nowhere was it more glaring than when I picked up these books, right? Okay, let's set the stage, shall we? House of Earth and Blood is a book about our main girl, Bryce, okay? Her bestie girl dies at the beginning of the book, and she is trying to find out why her friend died and what secrets she was keeping from Bryce. This girl's name is Danica, by the way. Not Danimals, Danica. Goes on a mission. She's rooting around her weirdly magical city that's like kind of set in modern day, kind of not. And she's aided by enslaved Angel. She's half fae, half human. Not that it really matters. He is her love interest, and they fight their fucking feelings for each other. I'm fighting and, you know, fighting shit. It's just not a good book. It's just not a good book, okay? The thing about this one, compared to all the other ones, I think, is that the plot's bad. The plot of this book and the pacing specifically of this book is just not enjoyable. The beginning is Infodump City, and then from there, we've got some, like, mystery solving, which I'm sorry is, like, kind of the, like, least exciting thing that you can do in a fantasy novel, so that wasn't super fun. But again, the main gripe that I have with the series are the characters, okay? So we get this introduction into Bryce and like how fucking great she is, and how she's such a good friend to Danica, and how Danica was such a good friend to her, which is just really not the case as you kind of read on more. Obviously, like honestly, a couple chapters you find out that Danica's kind of a shit friend. Bryce is a character that I found really hard to root for and like, because she's very inconsistent in her actions, which is something that you see throughout the series. It feels like Sarah didn't do the character work that was required of her at the beginning of this book and the beginning of the series, okay? You need to sit down with the characters, and yes, sure, it's great to know that they have a penchant for collecting little unicorn figurines, and that they've got big tits, and, you know, it's great that we know her likes, dislikes, and, like, what she looks like. That's awesome. But I think beyond that, you need to really nail down what your character's motivations are, and I'm sorry, but just because your shitty friend died, like, that is not the motivation to start a war. It is not motivation enough to carry on the book. And it's so clear as you go on with the series that, yeah, Bryce doesn't know what the hell she's doing, and she treats people around her like shit because she has no context of, like, character, I guess, or yeah, there's just no consistency in her. There's just no I don't want to rant. I don't want to rant. I don't want to rave. This book was bad. It was bad. I don't like Bryce. Hunt is a shit love interest as well. Here's the thing. I don't think everything needs to be enemies to lovers. In fact, I'm not even an enemies to lovers lover. But I do think that if you're going to have a love interest come in, there needs to be some sort of tension for the two characters. There's no tension between Bryce and Hunt. Sure, I guess you could say her, like, I was going to say cucking. Cucking's definitely not the word here. I was going to say that just because Bryce withholds sex for 4 months, that does not tension make, okay? It just doesn't. Not good. Not good. Let's talk about House of Flame and Shadow, though, which is the grand conclusion to the series, or at least for now, because Sarah doesn't know how to end a series. And that's what I want to say. Sarah cannot write an ending to save her life. Instead, she uses her skills to literally save everyone's lives, because it would be way too realistic if during this incredibly great big war battle showdown anyone died. What to be said about this book that so many people have bitched about? Not much. I think that it is a poor ending to a poor series, and I really don't want to read any more books in this series. I have to concur with my dear friend Erin from Booked and Busy. I'm going to link her video in the description, by the way. Her vlog for this is really fantastic. I just don't think that this series deserves the love that it gets. I think if you are someone who is like, wow, this is crazy what Sarah did, I've never read anything like this before, wow, it's fantasy in a real world setting, please just go read the Guild Hunter series by Nalini Singh. It's literally this, but better. It's cool too because each book in the series kind of alternates between the main couple, like every other book's about the main couple, and then every other book is like a side character and their love interest, like they get their own book. Very similar. And then you got angels. Very similar in that you have angels, vampires, vampire hunters. I don't know. It's good shit. Really well done by an author who really knows her thing and really executes well. Wish I could say the same for Miss Sarah Janet. You know, here's the thing. I like Sarah. I think she does write a good book. I think that generally speaking, these 3 books are just indicative of a greater problem that I see when authors get big, which is that they completely ignore their editors and just write what they like want to write. That's not always great. Like sometimes maybe take your editor's notes because you're not perfect even though you've been writing books forever, okay? Okay. Again, it's not just like a her problem. This is not something that is unique to her as an author. I'm not dunking on Sarah. I'm dunking on all authors who like get popular and then their book quality decreases. It's because you're not listening to your editors and you should. Okay, moving on to a book that was so bad, and I'm surprised I haven't read it because I read a lot of bad books around the time that this one came out. Books that I thought were absolute fucking bangers, and in hindsight were actually hot garbage. This I'm reading for a video, okay? And you're gonna see my thoughts and feelings and why I read this book later on. But I had the displeasure of reading Thoughtless by S.C. Stevens this month, and what a ride. Also, what a ride, like, looking at the Goodreads reviews for this book. This one is about our main character, Kiara, and she has moved to the Seattle area, I believe, to shack up with her boyfriend, Denny, who she has, like, been in a relationship with, like, kind of long distance, kind of not, for a little while, and they're, like, finally gonna get together and, like be together, you know. They haven't been able to, like, have their unencumbered fuck space, right? So anyway, they're going to move to Seattle and not, like, live alone together, but instead move in with Denny's long-term, like, friend, bestie, Kellen. Denny is Australian, by the way. He was kind of like an exchange student at one point and lived with Kellen's family, and so they, like, kind of go way back. This book is about Kiara fucking both dudes. Loving the crew, if you will. I wish that I could say that there was anything exciting about this. Here's a little secret if you didn't know. I love cheating in books. I think it's fun. I don't think it's fun in real life. I think it's fun in books. I especially think it's fun when we have a hero who's a piece of shit. And actually, I guess he wouldn't be the hero of the book in that sort of scenario. But like, we have a boyfriend who's a piece of shit and our heroine cheats on him to get with a better guy. So on board with that. This one, however, is tricky in that Kira is dating a really nice guy. Denny is a really, really nice guy. He dumps her, like, temporarily for, like, a day because they're gonna have to do a long distance thing, and, like, you know, she's just not about long distance, and she doesn't want to move to Australia. She's like, we just moved to Seattle, man. So in the one day that they're broken up, she decides to fuck her roommate, who she has been developing feelings for because he comes into the bar that she works at every day. It's certainly something. The writing of this book is, like, abysmally bad. Every scene is set in the same location. Like, every fucking time they go to the same bar that Kira works at, and we always have the, like, banter between the other guys that are in Kellen's band. Of course, he's a musician. I didn't mention that. We've got, I don't even know what to say. It's just, like, so much repetition. Like, not only is there no reason for our heroine to be cheating on her boyfriend, but there's just so much repetition in this book that it makes it so unexciting. I think the audiobook for this was about 20 hours fucking long, and I did listen to all 20 hours while regretting every life choice I've ever made. What do people see in this? I don't get it. And it's not even that the cheating needed to be justified, but it's like, Kellen's a douche, you know? He treats everybody like shit. He's just a typical, you know, bad boy. I don't need to talk about it anymore. This was bad. And I'm reading the sequel this month, so pray for me. Next up, a book I actually enjoyed. I know, shocker, she knows how to read books that she actually likes. Say You'll Be Mine was a book that I really enjoyed. This I also listened to via audio because that's just kind of the month I was having. This book's about our two main characters, Meghna and Kartik, I believe is how you say his name. I'm not entirely sure. Sound off in the comments, because you know I'm stupid and I'm probably wrong. This book is a fake dating book where we have Meghna who's getting set up by her mom, like after being strung along by this piece of shit dude for a very long time. She is finally like, okay, I am ready to be set up. She finds out that the piece of shit guy that's kind of been stringing her along is engaged. This is like a long-term best friend who basically just uses her for her songwriting abilities. She finds out he's getting engaged and she's like, shit. All right, well, if I'm gonna have to show up to his wedding, I'm gonna need a date. And so she lets her mom kind of like set her up with this guy, but she meets him and he's like, yeah, I don't want anything to do with you, basically. Like, I have no interest in dating. It's just not really my thing, girl. And she's like, you know what? I kind of like your candor. Like, I sort of appreciate it. You know what? You'll work perfectly because I'm not really looking to catch feelings for you either. You know, now that I think about it, like, I still have feelings for this guy. Like, it's fine, okay? So they fake date, they go to the wedding together, and over the course of the story, they fall in love. I know, it's a shocker, it's a surprise, it's a romance, what do we expect, okay? I liked this a lot, and I think it's not even the romance that was really that spectacular for me. It was just seeing Meghna's eyes kind of like open up as the story goes on about how shitty this white guy is and how he really gets his comeuppance at the end of the book, that shit is so satisfying. I love when bad men have bad outcomes, you know what I mean? I like when they like get told off. I like when they get consequences for their actions. And in this book we get that, which I think is really nice. I also really liked seeing Kartik like over the course of the story grow to want to be in a relationship, if that makes sense. I feel like a lot of the times when authors try to pull off this thing where the guy's like, I'm not ready for a relationship, I don't want to be in love, the reasons for that are usually pretty fucking stupid. Like, I just want to sleep around, or like, I'm just not ready for that. I mean, I guess it's true to life. Like, men are stupid and don't typically have reasons for doing stupid shit. But in this case, our hero really does have a reason as to why he does not want to be in a romantic relationship. And as he kind of works through, honestly, some of his childhood trauma, he realizes that he can have a successful romantic relationship, and like, he can be someone who this heroine relies on and trusts. And that was pretty great. I also just liked their banter and their text conversations. It just felt very true to life to me, and I really liked it. I liked this book a lot. I'd recommend it. And I believe this is a debut author, so definitely go support her because she killed it. Moving on to a book that, wow, is truly something. Nora Goes Off Script by Annabelle Monaghan. I'm trying to take a deep breath because I don't even know what to say about this shit. All right, so this is about our main character, Nora, okay? And she typically writes stuff for Hallmark movies, which is kind of a cool setup, right? Kind of a cool profession to have. At the beginning of the book, she has sold a screenplay. It's not her typical Hallmark thing. It is a story based off of her real life. She is a recent divorcee, and her husband was pretty shitty, and this book is kind of about the like push and pull of their romantic relationship. And the screenplay is kind of a, I guess, detail of her romantic relationship, obviously like fictionalized, whatever. And now that it has been sold to a studio that is very much not Hallmarky, she's got movie stars coming to her house to, I guess, use her house as a set, in a sense. The specific place, I believe, is like behind her house, called like the tea room or something like that. Anyway, doesn't fucking matter, like literally at all to the story because it takes like 5 seconds. They wrap filming, and for some reason, the main guy in the movie, the guy that's playing her ex-husband, Leo, he's like, you know what? I've really liked being at your place for the past like week or two filming. I'm just gonna stay. I'm gonna pay you some money and I'm gonna stay for a week. Never mind that you have young children and I'm a complete stranger. I'm living in your house. And she's like, you know what? Who am I to say no? Maybe I'll get some of that dick. And you know what? She does. She very much does. This story is bizarre, you know? It's one of those books where you open it up and you kind of feel like you are reading like the 7th chapter. Like you definitely missed something when you picked it up, but you didn't actually miss anything. It's just this author's way of like throwing you into the story. And I just feel like there was a real lack of context, a real lack of setup as to why Leo, the hero of the book, is like living at her house. There's just no tension at all. There's no tension or stakes. There's just a random guy living at her house who's given her that steady D while her kids are at school. He eventually leaves to go film another movie. She doesn't think he's ever coming back. Guess what? He does come back. They get married happily ever after. I can't describe. I really cannot describe how fucking weird this book is. Like I said, I'm trying to put it into words. Again, just like being thrown into the story, this stranger living at your house, him like giving you money, you getting just like raw intercourse all the time. It's just like, it's a lot, and it wasn't fun, and it wasn't very funny, and I don't understand. Also, the heroine acts like she's about fucking, I don't know, 18. She acts so immature, and I'm like, you are a parent. You have children. What are you doing? Okay, moving on. Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, more like romancing Mr. Bitcherton, because Colin's a bitch. I love the Bridgerton adaptation on Netflix. I have been craving Colin and Penn's series like I crave McNuggets, okay? But picking up the book was not the right idea, okay? I've read the book before. I gave it 4 stars. I think it's my favorite of the Bridgerton series, which says a lot that I haven't given any of the books 5 stars. That's like how I feel about these books. I just don't think they're 5-star material. I think the television show, to be honest, is like better. I think that the adaptation of these books is better than the actual books themselves. And I have a feeling I'm gonna feel the same way about this season because rereading this shit was intense and kind of insane. Kind of an insane choice on my part because what the fuck was this book, okay? Where to begin? We've got Penn, who in previous books has been described as a bigger girl. And in this book, she has slimmed out, of course, because no one's gonna love her if she is a bigger girl. We've got Colin, who has returned from his travels. He has been avoiding his life and just traveling his little ass off, and now he's 33 without a lady. And all of his brothers have been married before him, and married at a reasonable young age, you know, like people do in the olden days, but Colin is just shirking his responsibilities. He is someone who is kind of like just a spiteful little bitch. Like, there's no other way to put it. He is just a spiteful little bitch, and he comes back to Penn, his friend, who he's never seen in a romantic capacity, and is realizing not only is she skinny, but he's also finding her hot and sexy, and is wondering why he's never seen her in this light. And also, he is just mind-boggled because she actually has a fucking brain. He realizes all of this after having known this girl for like many years, okay? And he kind of discovers over the course of the story, obviously, that Penn is Lady Whistledown, and that she actually has a lot of the skills and the sort of like career that he might want himself. Now, he doesn't really want to like write a gossip column per se, but he has these journals from his travels, and Penn is like offering to kind of edit them and like help him maybe get these published. And the whole time, he's not grateful for any of this. Like, he is an actual little bitch. I don't know how many times I can say it, but his jealousy and his anger towards Penn comes up so often and is just absolutely mind-boggling. There is a good woman who has been here this entire time, who is brilliant and funny and beautiful, just all of the things that you could ever want in a woman, which you're realizing, but you're also realizing she's better than you, so let's bring her down a couple of pegs, right? What fucking lesson? Like, what lesson is that? What lesson is that, Julia? Like, tell me, I don't understand. He does undergo a transformation, and at the end of the book, he is apologetic for, like, treating her poorly and for being so jealous and, like, vindictive and spiteful or whatever. Maybe not vindictive, but, you know, spiteful. But I just don't think that's enough to excuse his behavior throughout the entirety of the book. Like, he acts like an actual child, and I'm really excited to see how Shonda and her team transforms this book, because I know for a fact that she's going to. I know that there is another potential love interest for Penn, which I think is so important, because why is Colin the only person that thinks this woman is beautiful? And like, what a number that would do on your self-esteem, right? If like only one man ever sees you as valuable and worthy, and it's only after multiple years and it's only after you get skinny. Okay, fuck him. Let's move on. Heiress by Rachel Hawkins. This is basically Saltburn if Oliver were an old lady. I mean, that's literally what this book is. It's about our heiress Ruby. This is a thriller if I didn't say that. This book's about our main character Ruby McTavish. She has this sort of like Evelyn Hugo type of persona. At the very beginning of her life, she ends up getting kidnapped, and then she gets like returned home, which is like this whole story in and of itself, and she's kind of like famous for this. And then over the course of her life, she ends up marrying a few different men who all kind of die under mysterious circumstances, and people wonder, like, did she do it? And in her letters to her adopted son Camden, she sort of like details her life and kind of the actions that led her to the place that she's at, which is dead. It's interesting because Ruby bequeaths to this big ass mansion that like has been in her family for many years to her adopted son Camden, instead of letting it go to her sister or her sister's shitty kids. And this book is about Camden kind of returning to his childhood home to, you know, kind of help out a little bit and to kind of fulfill his mother's last wishes. And he brings his wife Jules, who has her own agenda. So it's kind of interesting. It's kind of like not that exciting though. Like, the premise of this book's interesting. I kind of liked the letters that were left behind by Ruby. That's probably the most exciting part of the book, but I don't think any of this is going to surprise a seasoned like mystery thriller reader. I think that it's just a very average middle of the road read, but I think if you like Saltburn and you're like kind of craving something similar, you might enjoy this book. So I gave this one 3 stars. I don't think I've been saying what I've been giving these other books. Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, by the way, I don't know what the fuck I would rate that. It doesn't matter. Really, my star ratings don't matter. I feel like my opinions are what matters, right? Right? I don't know. Moving on. Tastes like Shakar. I don't actually know how to say that word. Now, again, I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments how stupid I sound, but I know that this word actually means sugar in another language, which I think is fine. This book's about Bobby and Benjamin, and Bobby is a wedding planner. She is going to plan the wedding for her 2 best friends, who are the hero and heroine of Dating Dr. Dill. That was a book that was very popular. This is like the second book in that series. Bobby is going to be in charge of doing this wedding. She's a wedding planner. She works for her uncle, and her uncle is like, prove to me that you can be really good at wedding planning, and I'll let you take over the business. Like, she's been planning with him for a very long time. She's there kind of from the inset of his business, but he doesn't really trust that like she can deliver. After a couple of weddings ago, when there was a wedding that was like brought to her family and brought to the family business, and they were like, hey, like, we really want to get this wedding catered by this guy named Benjamin. And so Bobby approaches Benjamin and is like, hey, will you cater? And he's like, I'm not a caterer, I only do restaurants. And he's just kind of a whole dick about the situation. So she's kind of in a weird situation, right? Like, she's having to impress her uncle and prove her worth, even though she's definitely worth it, and it's just this one like bad apple that kind of like made her not win that business or whatever, that wedding. So now she's going to do wedding planning for her 2 friends, and guess who has to help? Benjamin. Benjamin is actually going to be the one that's helping to cater this wedding, even though he wouldn't cater the other one. And he's doing this so that he doesn't have to join his family's business. So it's kind of like reverse, right? Like, she wants to own her family's business. He doesn't want anything to do with his family business. Having to work together, even though there's kind of like this enemies to lovers situation, because she's like, dude, fuck you. You like made my relationship with my uncle bad. Okay? It's fun. It's just a lot of fun. I think this is a very solid romance. I like this more than Dating Dr. Dill for sure. I loved Bobby and Benjamin's banter. There is a little light bondage in this book, which makes it really fun and sexy. It was a lot hotter than I had really anticipated. I just thought this was fun, and I think for a traditionally published romance, this is an absolute banger. I feel like I have changed my tune in recent years about traditionally published romances. I used to hate them, kind of abhor them. I just didn't think they were that great, but I think more and more fun stuff is getting published. I think this is definitely an example of that. So I'd recommend you pick this one up. It was 4 stars. It was a lot of fun. Moving on to a steamy ass book that I thought was also really fun. The Art of Scandal. This is a book that I read for a video over on Patreon, where I did kind of a comparison almost of the Goodreads Choice Award winners versus the Amazon Editor's Choice like romance winners. And The Art of Scandal was a book that didn't overlap. It was a book that was just on Amazon's, and I was very curious about it because I'd never heard anything about it, never seen this cover. If you like the show Scandal, I think you will really like this. So this book's about our two main characters, Matt, Rachel, and Nathan. Yeah, there's three people in this situation. It's not a love triangle though, okay? At the beginning of the book, Rachel's turning 40. No, her husband's turning 40, and she's baking a cake. She's bringing it out to her husband. She's excited about it until she gets a dick pic, an unsolicited dick pic on her phone from her husband. And she's like, oh, this is kind of a weird time to be getting this text. And she realizes that her husband's been cheating on her for over a year. And he is a politician. He is running at the moment for, the Senate, I believe, in DC. He's already a politician. Everybody kind of knows he is, but he's running for Senate. And so he basically begs Rachel to stay. He's like, I'll give you the divorce that you want. I'll give you the money that you deserve, but you're gonna have to, pretend to be, in a loving relationship with me until this election kind of goes through. Rachel's just like pissed at the situation she's gotten herself into because she was a single teen mom basically when she met this guy. Actually, she wasn't like a teenager when she met him, but like she was a teen mom. She brought a child into this relationship, and he's been like really great with the kid or whatever, and like, she hasn't hated her life this entire time, but she realizes that she's put aside all of her passions. Like, she had a passion for art. She was an art history major. She used to be like a cool edgy person. She just feels like she's lost herself being this like politician's wife, and so she embarks on a sexual relationship with this younger guy who she kind of like meets in a chance encounter, and they have like a really delightful romantic relationship that is based on not just sex, although sex is a huge component of it. It's also a mutual love of art. He is an artist, and as the story carries on, we kind of learn more about his actual identity, which he is hiding from our heroine, and they kind of work on some art together. Shit gets really messy, really dramatic, and it is so much fun. Again, like I said, I love a good cheating book if we have a heroine who is sticking it to a guy who's a piece of shit. And in this case, I mean, he's a piece of shit, right? Like, he cheats on his wife who has basically given up everything for him. So it's nice to see her get exactly what she wants and deserves, which is a hot younger dude. I loved it. I thought it was so much fun. And I think this is a book that a lot of people would like. It's just really well written. It's not like it's the most inventive or like groundbreaking plot ever, but it doesn't need to be because it's a whole lot of fun. I liked it. I liked this one a lot. I gave this book 4 stars. All right, moving on to our second to last book, Shadows of You by Catherine Cowles. Okay. This is another book that I read for that video. Oh, also, so was Tastes Like Shikar, I should say. The Patreon video that I did talking about like Goodreads versus Amazon, winners. Tastes Like Shikar, The Art of Scandal, and Shadows of You were books for that video. Shadows of You by Catherine Cowles is a romantic suspense novel. We've got our main character, Aspen, who at the beginning of the book is escaping from a mysterious presence who we're not really sure who it is, right? But it's a man, definitely an abusive man, and she's escaping with her daughter. We learn, as the course of the story goes on, that her sister was murdered by her husband, and that she left behind a daughter. So Aspen takes her niece and disappears, kind of has a new, I was gonna say personality. No, she's given a new identity, and she is going to go and live in the Pacific Northwest and kind of make a new life for herself. And then flash forward 5 years, Katie, the little baby, is older. Aspen is thriving in her life until she starts getting mysterious letters from a murderer, the guy that killed her sister. What to say? The main character of this book, by the way, or the hero of this book, by the way, Roan, is a fish and wildlife guy, and she ends up meeting him because he is going to help a injured deer on her property or whatever. He's kind of misunderstood and is blamed for something that he didn't do a couple of books back, and a lot of people just kind of like misunderstand him, right? So we've got kind of like a heroine who likes to tend to wounded things and a wounded hero. You know what I mean? Like emotionally wounded, kind of traumatized by what happens to him in previous books, okay? The romance of this book, I guess, was fine. It was a little on the boring side. I didn't really understand why our hero wanted to be with our heroine, besides the fact that she's nice. My main thing is that I just don't think that this kind of romantic suspense is for me. And that sort of romantic suspense is when there is a hint of lurking violence against women, kind of just in the corner. I just don't know that I would have a fun time falling in love if I was also scared I was going to be murdered by a different man. I think I just have a hard time trusting men. And she does, like, that is an aspect of the book at the beginning of the book. But I find that is a recurring thing in Catherine Cowles' books. We've got this violence against women thing, and it's never by the hero, for sure. But I'm not a huge fan of the whole, like, damsel in distress plotline. That's not something that I really connect with. And I feel like all of her heroines tend to be, like, a little bit soft and a little bit meek. And you know what? That's okay. But I think if you're gonna do the romantic suspense thing and have this, like, evil lurking, I would like her to kick some ass, you know? Like, I want her to be the one doing the ass kicking and not the man. I don't know. It's just, like, it's not a formula that works for me. Maybe it works for you. This was just, like, like, whatever. It was a fine book for what it was. Like, I think if you're into this, it's like, it was a 3-star for me, but like, it's not really something that I want to read in the future. And I think this is the third book that I've tried by her, and I think I'm just ready to like call it quits. And then lastly, a book with a really fun premise, a historical romance. The Ladies Rewrite the Rules. This book's about our two main characters, Diana and Max. Diana is just living her life as a widow. She's excited because she didn't really want to marry the guy that she married. He was like kind of old and kind of meh. And she's like living in the house that she like inherited, I guess, from this guy with his sister. And the vibes are just kind of rancid, right? She's kind of like looking to leave or whatever. One day, a couple of dudes show up and they're like gentleman callers. And she's like, wait, I'm a widow. And like, how do you even know that I live here? Like, what are you doing here? And one of them's holding a pamphlet, and it's called The Bachelor's Directory. And it's basically a list of all of the eligible women who are very, very wealthy that second, third, fourth, whatever sons can marry, right? In kind of the gentry in England in the time. You've got like the first son, and he's the one that inherits the money and the title, and then all of the other sons kind of have to just figure their shit out. And I guess Max's solution, the guy who wrote The Bachelor's Directory, he's like, you know what? I just think it's unfair that I don't get any money, so I'm gonna put together a list of broads who I can swindle, right? For their fortunes. And it's actually not that dastardly. Max is like a really nice guy, and he sees the error of his ways pretty quickly. But this book is basically about the ladies rewriting the rules, because like historically women are the ones who have to kind of sit back and just wait for a guy to propose. But now that they know that they have the power because they've got the money, they can really decide what kinds of guys they want to interact with, right? And so they invite all of these like eligible gentlemen to balls and stuff, and they again get to pick what happens to them, which I think is a really cool premise. My issue with this is that I think there was like a little too much going on, in the sense that we're not just following Max and Diana. Max obviously being apologetic and Diana kind of like growing to like him over the course of the story. We also have a woman who has been kind of fucked over by a guy in the past. She ends up like getting her own love story. There's like a few different love stories in this book. I think the issue is that there's like too many. I think if we just focused on Diana and Max's and maybe had like one side story, it would have been okay, but it just felt like a little bit too much, and it left the book kind of feeling, I don't want to say incomplete, but it didn't feel like you were close enough to the characters to really care what happened to them, right? Which sucks because the premise was so good, but execution just like wasn't totally my favorite. So I gave this book 3 stars, but I would be interested to read more from this author in the future. I think she is the author of, is it Mr. Malcolm's List or something like that, which is a show or like a movie. It's been adapted into a movie on Netflix or something like that. So she's clearly very successful and writes a lot of shit, but this was just like okay for me. And I read this for a list video that I'm doing at the end of the year. So those are the 12 books that I wanted to talk to you about. But if you're feeling like you want to know what the other books that I read are, and you maybe want to hear my thoughts and feelings on some other books, if you want to hear my thoughts on Well Matched, The Pact, or That Summer Feeling, you should check out my video where I read authors who I'm giving a second chance to. I'll leave that video in the description down below. Also, if you want to hear my thoughts on Fangirl Down, Bride, or A Love Song for Ricky Wilde, I did a vlog on that that's also on my channel where I read February new releases. It's a video that I'm trying to like repeat in other months too, so you're gonna see like a March new release video for me. And then lastly, I read 5 delightful sapphic romances. Like, I had the best time this month reading these books. I read Broken Beyond Repair, Mistakes Were Made, Set the Record Straight, Outdrawn, and Those Who Wait. That video is over on my Patreon on my $10 tier. If you want to pop in for a month and join me there, feel free. Next month's video is going to be pretty fun too. I am using this like Amazon tool that gives you different tropes and recommends KU books based on trope, which I think is super fun. I'm doing like a vlog on that next month, and by next month I mean March. So if you subscribe now, you can see that video, and you can see the Sapphic Romance video, and every video I've ever posted over on Patreon. There's a lot actually over there, so just thought I'd mention it because I had so much fun with those books. And again, I do a lot of fun stuff over there, and I feel like I don't talk about my Patreon that much, so I did just want to mention it. Thanks so much for watching this video. Thanks for listening to me bitch. Frankly, it's just fun. It's fun to do, but I did actually have a really great reading month. It's funny, a lot of the books that I have not talked about, and a lot of the books that are mentioned in other videos were like 5-star like bangers. So if you want to know the good books, you gotta go watch those other videos, okay? But thanks so much for watching this video. I love doing these. I'm gonna do another one next month and another one the month after that. Love y'all so much, and I'll see you next time.